country was not only sent back to the back of the negotiating queue, but also copped at increasing their tariff rates to 145% after they tried to hit back. And you know who I'm talking about? As Trump would say, China. Now, I don't want this to come off sounding like an after-the-fact rationalization for Trump's action, but this really is classic Trump art of the deal stuff. Slapping tariffs on everyone and everything and asking everyone to come to the table and negotiate as a starting ploy would have given China the cover, if they wanted to take it, to make a deal with the U.S. and save face because, well, they wouldn't have been being singled out. But instead, Beijing went the opposite way, and now it is game on. China is now reportedly revving up its factories to dump even more cheaply made schlock into the United States, tariffs be damned, in a show of defiance. But this action also basically proves Trump's point. The reality is that China has for years, decades even, taken advantage of Western greed and naivete to push to be allowed ever greater access to American markets and Australian markets and everyone else's markets. And they returned the favor by manipulating their currency to make their products artificially cheap, by stealing the West's manufacturing, and eventually its technology and intellectual property. Now, amazingly, the West has fallen for this for decades, and they believed once upon a time that liberal trade with China would lead to a more liberal China. I know, right? Here's former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan in the Rose Garden with President Bill Clinton way back in 2000 making the case.
History has demonstrated that implicit in any removal of power from central planners and broadening of market mechanisms, as would occur under WTO, is a more general spread of rights to individuals. Such a development will be a far stronger vehicle to foster other individual rights than any other alternative of which I'm aware.
What's the old saying? You'd have to be pretty smart to believe something that stupid. And yet, here we are. And I'm giving you this history because it helps to do something that's necessary in times like this, when the mere presence of Donald Trump deranges everyone's thinking and stops them from seeing a problem clearly. Because the fact of the matter is that Trump or no Trump, China's behavior, mercantilist behavior, is the real issue. And it was always going to be an issue for America. And while free trade is great when it is between comparable nations, it is a disaster when one side uses low or even slave wages, or manipulates its currency, or puts up its own protectionist walls, or all three, to take advantage of the relationship, and the other side loses out. This is precisely what has been going on between China and America. And as I said last week, the nature of the Chinese relationship, which basically traded American debt for Chinese goods and allowed China to get rich enough and efficient enough to build the carrier groups and drones and missiles that it may use to invade Taiwan and defeat the U.S. in the Pacific, this was unsustainable and heading for disaster, Trump or no Trump. Which brings me to my second point. It was only ever Trump who was ever going to do something about this. Because do you think that if Kamala Harris became president, she'd do anything to upset the markets? The Babylon Bee summed it up very funnily with this great piece today. Democrats concerned Trump may not have China's best interests at heart. It's a joke, but it's kind of true because the fact is the entire political establishment is now so devoted to serving the whims of the markets, which means don't annoy China, and these markets have become this weird proxy for how the country's going. Well, this is what they're doing. They say, oh, well, let's just let the good times roll. But Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had other ideas. He indicated this week at the American Bankers Association that this administration was about turning away from Wall Street and putting the focus back on Main Street.
For the last 4 decades, basically since I began my career in Wall Street has grown wealthier than ever before, and it can continue to grow and do well. But for the next 4 years, the Trump agenda is focused on Main Street. It's Main Street's turn, It's Main Street's turn to hire workers. It's Main Street's turn to drive investment. And it's Main Street's turn to restore the American dream.
And fixing trade is the key way to do this. Now, for Trump, who came of age in the business world when Japan, not China, was the big threat, not militarily, but definitely economically, the idea of America being taken advantage of has always been a horror show. Here's Trump all the way back in 1995.
If the United States government took a firmer stand with foreign countries, would we be better off, or are we so much now a part of the nation of the community of nations that we can't really afford to offend anybody?
I think we'd be better off, and I think we'd be far more respected. I think the Japanese would respect us far more than they do. I don't think they have any respect for us, and they shouldn't have any respect for us because we are idiots when it comes to what's happening. I mean, look at dealing with Japan. I mean, just take a look at what's going on. I mean, they make hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and we lose money in deficits, and nothing happens. And they say, no, the Japanese are learning, and they're starting to open up. In the meantime, every second goes by, we're losing.
So his thinking has always been the same on these things. But as for China, what's going now was always the plan. Have a listen to Trump back in 2011.
When I see what China is doing, I'll give you a little China story also. China, I said the other day, very, very hard to buy anything outside of China. Oh, certain other countries also, but China's, the one. And I said, somebody said, well, what would you do? What can you do? So easy. I'd drop a 25% tax on China. And I said to somebody that is really the messenger. The messenger is important. I could have one man say, we're going to tax you 25%. And I could say another, listen, you mother, we're going to tax you 25%. Now, you've said the same exact thing. You've said the same exact thing, but it's a different messenger.
Entertaining, sure, but there's a real point to all this. Everyone loves to say that Trump is unpredictable. Trump's a madman. You never know what he's going to do next. Well, I don't buy that. And whether you love him or hate him or somewhere in between, Donald Trump is actually an open book. All you have to do is look at it.